did stuff for lawsuits or whatever, some defense attorney, get up there and as the witnesses for Tom that, he's really not faking it. He's, doing terrible. And then you have, the same expert who did terrible in my case, Dr. Marikangas, who's a longtime friend of Tom's. Throughout the entire competency hearing, we hear that Marikangas is the one orchestrating all the experts. Okay, whoa. Okay, wait a minute. Who's Marikangas? Okay, Marikangas is a board certified neurologist and psychiatrist. Those are unusual to be double board certified in that. He has been a high profile expert witness in criminal cases of people with brain injury, brain damage for decades. And he's masterminding what experts are looking at Tom. And those people, Dr. Chu, the head of USC's medical center, is good friends with Marikangas, and Marikangas and his wife are calling her and getting her. It was only the first time in a civil case like this had Dr. Chu, the head of USC, ever testified in court, clearly doing a favor for Dr. Marikangas, who I was told when he did terrible in my case that it was because he was losing his mind and he was up there in age, and that's why he didn't do well. But now, years later, he's still doing perfectly well to coordinate with the public defenders to get Tom a good chance of getting off the hook for having to stand trial. They're at least going to drag it out. So maybe he kicks the bucket anyway, or maybe he does get senile enough that it would be, I don't know. The guy's 84 years old now. They've drug it out for years already. And even if the judge rules that he's competent, they're going to appeal it. And how long is that going to take? A year, 2 years, whatever. There could be a backlog because of, COVID the last few years. We don't know when that would actually get ruled on.
So in other words, you don't think Tom Girardi will ever see the inside of a jail cell?
I'd like to think that he would, especially for the victims, not just the current ones, but the ones that weren't listened to 40 years ago. Some people died and nobody listened to them. And so for those people, I hope he does. I don't even care if it's a day, but just being held accountable, a system that was broken finally does the right thing, not just for Tom, but the people that helped him do it, because he didn't do it alone. Obviously we see the bookkeeper was stealing from him, and now we see some movement on the son-in-law. The bar has just filed just recently to get permission from the bar courts to file an extended filing to ask for the son-in-law to be disbarred while all this stuff's going on, because he's caused so much harm to the public. And, he's not the only one at Girardi case who is lying to the victims. We know from my friend Kathy's family. We know from the NFL case. We know from the ghost ship case, which was a huge case in Oakland where 36 people died. Those people got their money stolen too. And there are thousands of victims of Girardi. So, I hope so. But at this point, we've gaslit ourselves. People have gaslit us. The system hasn't worked. It's failed over and over. So it's kind of like, we definitely are wait to see what happens. It won't be because we didn't do everything we possibly could to cooperate, to turn over, to help, to stay out of the way, or whatever was needed to be done, to help victims, to, speak out when we could, when we thought it was appropriate. It's certainly not because of that, but it's definitely something that, to see a lawyer like that fall, that from that height to this, it's almost unbelievable. People are obsessed with the Murdaugh case on the East Coast, and it's a very fascinating case because it's really similar, except for Girardi was doing it for the entire state of California, which is the fourth largest economy in the world. I mean, my God, talk about power. And his wife is on TV bragging about it. You just couldn't make that up.
You couldn't make that up. So when Tom says in court that he doesn't remember his most current wife Erika Jayne, you're like rolling your eyes.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. Yeah, yeah. How insane. I mean, we had just had the event, um, at my son's event, for the ice cream company. And Erika had said that when she talks to him, that, he asks her things and current questions. And then she went on a podcast and said that he had called her the day after her opening night to ask her how it went. He's all up on things. One of the interesting things during the competency hearing is that they asked, all the experts, well, what proof do you have of this? Like, it's not acceptable in science to look at a PET scan and give a diagnosis of any neurodegenerative disease. They can try to give a clinical diagnosis to try to treat something, but it's not until you have a brain autopsy and you cut the brain open and you look at it in a certain way with the right chemicals, you can't say someone has CTE or Alzheimer's or Lewy body or whatever. You can guess, do your best guess at that, but the gold standard is an autopsy. And then they go on to say, well, even though we've had all these sympathetic people about, him being in a locked facility, he's like a level 1 at that locked facility, meaning he's the least worst off. And that's never changed the whole time he's been there. Like, if you're progressing rapidly, really bad, wouldn't you move on some kind of scale that somebody else is doing that's independent of the things that he can manipulate? I mean,
Yeah.
so it makes you wonder. And then he sat there perfectly. I was there all 3 days of the hearing. He sat there perfectly, except for the part where he said, fuck you. But someone said on a podcast who wasn't there, oh, he stood up or whatever. No, he didn't. He was sitting. I was actually watching him. And I did a lot of moving around because he would move so I couldn't stare him down, because this is my only chance to look this guy in his eye and say, you fucked over all these people. And if they can't be here, I'm going to be here and let you know that what you did was disgusting and gross, and you should go away for the rest of your life. And so should the people that helped you. And so he would move, he'd keep trying out. So I would move down the bench. So I was staring at him when this happened. And in my mind, I'm thinking, because I'm in the third row. So you've got rows of people that are, behind this wooden gate. And then you have another row, and then you have the tables of the two sides that are sitting there. And then the judge is all the way in the back of the courtroom. So I didn't hear it, but I saw it. And Tom and I had an ongoing joke. Like, I used to give him gifts with fuck you or the word fuck on them, because we both swear a lot. So I'm like, did Tom just say fuck you to the prosecutor? Before my mind could even question it, the prosecutor says to the judge, I just want you to know, the defendant just said fuck you. And then I'm thinking, did he just say fuck you and not F you to the judge? The whole thing was just sort of wild, but it was never loud or boisterous. It wasn't an outburst on anybody's behalf. It was so kind of subtle and smooth. That's the only thing that was out of character of what would I consider following social norms. So for 24 hours, Tom Girardi sat in a courtroom, followed all social norms, and didn't fucking fall asleep. Who wouldn't fall asleep if you have like late stage dementia and you got to sit there and you can't really talk or move? I mean, we're falling asleep sometimes sitting there watching some of this stuff. It's so boring. How could somebody with that late stage, and then like the clownery stuff